Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session. Um, Today we will be rounding up the define stage. This week we'll be rounding up the define stage so that next week we can head into the ideate stage of the design thinking process. So for today, we are going to be talking about crafting problem statements. We have discussed the different methods of defining empathy mapping, affinity mapping, user stories, user journey mapping, the personas, and now the most important of all, or the hallmark of the define stage, the problem statement. How do we craft good problem statements? How do we know that the problem statement that we have generated is pointing at the right direction? Yeah, so that was what we'll be discussing today. So, like I've been saying over and over and over, problem statement is the hallmark of the design stage. It serves as the foundation for the entire design process. It helps us to understand users' needs and it serves as a compass to guide designers through the whole intricate maze of user needs, frustration, and aspirations. We have gotten a lot of data from the research stage. I've gotten a lot of insight into the user's needs, their frustrations, their aspirations, the problems they are facing, the solutions they might want. So now a problem statement serves as the compass to guide us through that maze, that whole bush, that whole forest of data that we have generated. Mm. Like I've said a lot of times, that understanding our users is essential to successfully addressing their pain points. So now we have understood them in the empathy stage, and we want to start addressing them in the ideation stage. So to bridge these two stages via the define stage, we have to define the problem by the problem statement. So now, what is a problem statement? Generally, a problem statement defines who the user is, what they need, and why. It's as simple as that. A problem statement is not a bunch of paragraphs. It's not a bunch of frustrations and pain points and complaints you have gotten because of the term problem statement. Some people tend to see it as what is the user suffering, what is the user suffering from, or what is the problem you're trying to solve. It's not just bunch of complaints and frustrations and aspirations or desperations or any problem that the user is solving. Yeah. So in a problem statement, is defining who the user is. So what type of user are we designing for? Or who is our target user? What user are we addressing? Defines who the user is and what they need and why do they need what we have identified. Why? What's the reason why they need this? It lets us see the importance of this need that we are defining. So it should be concise, it should be user focused, and it should be rooted in research. It shouldn't be fictional or just based on assumptions. It should be from the research that you have done, that you pinpoint and you get and you define your problem statement. So problem statement can also be called user need statements or point of view statements. They are the primary tool in the second stage of the design thinking, that's the define stage. They help us align different points of views before moving forward into ideating. So the problem statement is what matters here is that we should remain consistent throughout our organization. Problem statement is such that when we have defined our users, what they need and why, it puts everybody in the design team on the same page. We know who we are solving for. We know what we are solving, and we know why we are solving this problem. Everybody's on the same page, and we can easily go ahead to ideation because now that everybody knows the general idea or the core idea of the whole problem, we can start ideating or thinking about solutions on how to solve this problem. So now the format of a problem statement. A lot of us made this mistake in our last task. I got a lot of paragraphs of a lot of sentences, but a problem statement is usually just one sentence. So depending on your research or whatever methods you have applied to defining your research data, you might have more than one problem statement. It's fine to have more than one problem statement if you have been able to identify different needs, maybe different smaller needs. Then you create like three problem statements or four problem statements. For just one, a problem statement shouldn't be more than one sentence long. It's just one sentence. Remember that we are trying to make this as clear and concise as possible. When we have defined a problem statement and it's as clear as possible, and we share it with our stakeholders, we share it with the design team, everybody is looking at the same idea, the same general idea. Like I've said before, a traditional problem statement has three components. It has the user, it has the need, and it has the goal. So if you notice now, in this problem statement, I did not mention the problem. So some people might think a problem statement is just all about the problem. You're supposed to state the problem, but it's more than that. Because when you start focusing on the problem, or when you make a statement that is focused on the problem, it doesn't give rise to ideation. It doesn't give rise to the solution easily. So now, instead of formatting your problem statement to focus on the problem, you're going to format it to focus on the user, to focus on the need and the goal. So like the formula, I've given this formula before. So that it's usually combined in the following pattern. A user needs need in order to accomplish goal, or a user needs need because goal or because of insight. So now this user, depending on the stage of of your design process, or depending on how detailed, like what's problem you're trying to craft a problem statement for. The user might be a persona, or it might be your general target audience. For example, now Blessing, a multitasking tech-savvy model of two. So now this user here is gotten from a persona template, from a persona. The persona has been created. What's the user's name? Blessing. Now this problem statement it's now more detailed. We call it secondary problem statement, because of the user here is not the general target audience, but it's a persona presenting a particular subset of your users. So now, if you want to craft this problem statement to be more general now, instead of saying blessing, the multitasking savvy model of two, you can simply go be like young adults or young single mothers. So when you say something like young single mothers, young adults, busy students, it's depicting a general audience, a target audience, or something like people living in the rural community, it's a target audience, getting a general idea of the people in that community. So needs to quickly and confidently compare options without leaving her comfort zone. Why? Or because in order to spend more time doing things that really matter. So now this is the problem statement. So now in this problem statement, we were not fixated on the problem. We were not saying things like um, Blessing has been using a lot of complicated, unintuitive tools to compare options, and it's been very stressful on her. We were not we know that, like, From this problem statement, from seeing the need, for there to be a need, it means the need has not been met. So from this problem statement, we can easily derive from it that yes, she has been received quickly and confidently. It's possible that other options she has been trying to use are not fast enough, or she doesn't have enough trust in them to be confident to do it without leaving her comfort zone. So like a tax, there's someone here that the problem they're trying to solve is a problem for tailors. They're trying to bridge a gap between tailors and people in need of tailors. So instead of going to the tailoring shop and you're checking your size and trying to fit your dress every single time. So if this person is trying to bridge this gap and create an application where you can do all this at the comfort of your home. So let's say Blessing is the persona this of this research process. She's the one that has been created in the defined state. We are saying now that Blessing needs to quickly and confidently compare options, probably tailoring options without needing to leave her comfort zone. Why? Because she wants to spend more time doing things that really matter. So now, if you see in this problem statement, we were not specific. We did not point at features, did not point at solutions. Your problem statement should be such that it should encompass the general problem. It should be general as possible, while fixating on a specific subset of your problem. I don't know if that makes sense, but we're going to get into it in more details. But your problem statement should not, from the very beginning, start pointing at solutions, because when you start pointing at solutions at the very beginning of crafting your problem statement, you limit your ideation, you limit the ideas that can come up. So now, say, let's for example now you say Blessing, a multitasking tech-savvy model of two, needs a tailoring application where she can needs a tailoring application where she can let's say hop on a video call with the tailor in order to save time than trekking or going to the tailoring shop. Yeah. So now this problem statement has already fixated on the video call. It has fixated on this video call. So now when we are ideating, working with these problem statements, we'll be more focused on how can we make the video call better? How can we make sure that every single option would be available in this video call? Or how can we make this feature such that it's perfect and um it solves the problem of our user? But we are not solving the whole problem at this point because we are focused on just one subset of the problem. So at first, your problem statement should be as general as possible. But we're still going to get there. So now I said the format of a problem statement, it has three components: the user, the need, and the goal. Like I've said, the user should correspond to a specific persona or a real end user segment that you have done research on. It's also helpful to include a short tagline that helps remind everyone who the user is, especially if the problem statement will be used by a large team or by stakeholders who are removed from research. So now so the reason why they said this, if you're using a persona as your user, you don't just say Blessing needs. You might know who best Blessing is because you created a persona and you worked with the persona. But your stakeholder, the CEO or the person you are reporting to might not know who Blessing is. So along with adding Blessing, you should include a tagline on the role of the person. When for the persona assignment, I commended the people that added a role to their persona, not just giving me the name, the age, the frustration, the pain point. Give them a role so I understand what role they're actually playing here. in your design thinking. So there's some instance of some people that you are creating an application um for medical queuing. You know, when you come to hospitals and the doctor is not available to meet with you yet, so you have to wait in line for hours, and it can be very frustrating. Yeah. So now some people, their user personas with this problem in mind, or with this research, with the research, all the research they have done. Well, for somebody, the user persona was a driver, a delivery driver, and a cops member, a cops like NYSC cops member. So now, if you see in this instance now, the persona does not reflect the real need of the application. Because if it's an application that is catering to in the medical line, you have to think of your target audience are people that actually need it, people with chronic disease conditions, people that actually go to the hospital daily, that would probably have to sit on that chair for hours, multiple times weekly. People that read the applications are caregivers, probably someone with old aged parents that have to take their parents to the hospital weekly. So once again, I would like to say that your target audience is very important. Something I've said at the very, very first start, at the empathy stage of research. You don't just go ahead into research. You have to, as you are defining your goal, the goal of the research, define who you are researching, your target audience. If you research the wrong people, you will get the wrong insight. So now for the examples that are here, Lesson, a multitasking savvy model of two, Kita, a researcher with an appetite for adventure, and Sam, a connected YouTuber in the city. So this is the user. This is the sentence. This is the part of the sentence that is encompassing the user. That's either your target audience or the user persona. So now the second part of the problem statement is the need. The need. So this need is what actually reflects the problem. So we're not going to write it out as the problem per se. We're going to write it as the need because we are not here to listen to complaints, just listen to complaints and take the complaints at face value. For every complaint, if I'm complaining about something, it's because I would rather have gotten something else. It's pointing to a need. It's like when I told you in empathy mapping, when you're listening to what users are saying, think about what they are thinking. So while they are saying this app is too cluttered and it's too messy, they are thinking I would rather want something clean and minimalistic. That's where the need comes from. I would rather want something I can use as quickly as possible and drop my phone so I can do other better things. Not something like that. There's a lot of ads and lots of obstructions. So now, what's the real user? We know that the problem here is cluttered application, messy application. But what's the need here? The need is that they need something that is quick and efficient, so they can do better things with their time. So the need should be real. Remember, it should be deriving from research. So a lot of you that did not do the research well at the first stage of your task, so you're having a lot of problems along the line because you'd have to start getting fictional data. You have to start working with assumptions. You might not be able to get the real user need. And that's why it's fine. That's why it says that the design thinking process is not linear. You should jump from front to back. Like Desmond explained when he was giving us a recap in our last session. Now we are in the define stage. If you find that you cannot define the need, go back to research and make it better. It's a iterative process. It goes on and on and on. So it does not mean that from define you have to head over to ideate when you do not have enough information. Go back to your research and make it better. Research more, get more insights. So the need should not be made up and it should not be phrased as a solution. So this was I was trying to explain before that. Your need should not be phrased as a solution. Do not point to features. in your problem statement. Even when I was saying I need users need a simple and intuitive application. If possible, avoid that kind of statement because you're already phrasing it as a solution. So when we are coming to whenever we are coming to ideate using this problem statement, it limits us because everybody's thinking simple and intuitive. What if they need something else? What if there's another solution that has been blocked now that if we had used a more encompassing problem statement, it might have been generated? But because we've already limited ourselves when creating a problem statement, now everything is pointing towards one feature. So when you are talking about the need, you should stay away from features, stay away from interface components, stay away from specific technology. For example, possible needs may be one, to quickly and confidently compare options without leaving our comfort zone. This is the need from the previous statement or previous problem statement we looked at. Two, to meet and socialize with others while maintaining family balance. Three, to get validation from others when making an important decision. So now you see that these need statements now they are not pointing at specific features. They are not pointing at applications or digital devices. They're just pointing at the general need. That was the core need. We are complaining about these things. Why? So we should keep in mind that users do not always know what they need, even if they may say so. So it's your job to understand the real need of the user. They might be as they are complaining about stuff, about a lot of things, about features, about interface, about different technologies. We should be able to think, where is this complaint stemming from? What do they need? What gap can we fill in this situation? So now the third one is the insight or the goal, which is this is the third part or the third component of the problem statement. So the insight basically answers the question why. It can be the insight or the goal is the result of meeting that need. It should be rooted in empathy. Look beyond the obvious. Think about what the solution would allow the user to accomplish. Think about the user's hopes, their fears, their motivations. So for example, some goals here are spending more time doing things that really matter, feeling confident having new friends over for dinner, pursue a dream that has always taken the back. If I can refer to um, our last session where we talked about user journey maps. We we looked at a user journey map of a bachelor looking for cooking recipes because he had friends over, was having friends over in the evening, and he wanted to cook something for them. So if you want to, for this situation now, if you want to phrase a problem statement, now we have our user person now. Let's say the person's name is Michael. It can be like then we start Michael, a 27-year-old bachelor who never cooks or who has no idea or who has no experience with cooking. So now this is the target user. So what's their need? They need a way to cook a great meal. Now, if you notice from the need I just stated, now I said need a way to cook a great meal. So if you remember now, our application or we thought about was a recipe application, like something that where people can go and get recipes and you would then you can cook it or whatever you want to do with the recipe. But now I'm not saying a Michael needs clear and precise recipes or needs recipes that can be cooked quickly. I'm not pointing at features. I'm not saying things like quickly or clear or pointing at solutions. I'm focusing on the user's need, general need. So why does Michael need this recipe? He wants to cook a good meal, a great meal. That's the need. The whole him going to YouTube, him going to Google, the whole need, the reason why he's doing all those things is because he wants to cook a great meal, a good meal. That's the need in this situation. He wants to cook a good meal because. So now the because now leads us to the insight. And if I can pick from the second one here, because he wants to feel confident having his new friends over for dinner. So now we start as the user. Michael wants a great meal or needs a way to a great meal so that he can feel confident having new friends over for dinner. So by the time we have crafted the problem statement in this way, we can begin ideating and we are not limited. If I had mentioned recipes in the need, we would have started looking at the route of recipes about making fonts bigger, making it short, making it accessible. Like the last time we were ideating for about it, we are focused on recipes. But now we just know that Michael has this need that he wants to cook a meal. Can start ideating about different ways we can help Michael cook this meal. So a good problem statement does not limit us. Now, if you begin ideating now, we can decide not to go the recipe route. We can decide to create an application where people can rent chefs. Maybe you can come to the application, look for cooks close to you or chef close to you, someone that can come to your home and cook for you at a fee. So that might be what Michael might want. Michael might not want to experiment and start trying out recipes and still making a flop when he's having new friends over for dinner. So it does not limit us and it allows us to ideate. Remember that the goal of definition is to lead us to ideation in the best way possible. Now, what are the benefits of a clear problem statement? Benefits as obvious as possible. One, it captures the user and the need. So a problem statement distills your knowledge of the users and their need into a single sentence. So it's single sentence. That's the key word here. A single sentence is as clear and concise as possible. So I think it's almost a miracle or almost magic for you to have a lot of research data, a lot of responses, most of most of the survey that you you guys did in your task. You guys had 10 responses, but in real research, might have 200 plus, might have 30, might have 50. So it's almost a miracle for you to distill that knowledge, that whole maze of information into one single sentence that represents your user's need. Okay, and I would think now is the right time to that that problem statement can be general and can be specific. So in this situation, I'm talking about a general problem statement, like I've been saying, general. You're not pointing at specific features. So you can write that your problem statement be specific, point at specific features or specific needs. So we usually call those ones secondary problem statement, but we're talking about the primary problem statement here. So we're also going into all that. So another benefit of a clear problem statement is that it aligns your team along a concise goal. So if a problem statement that is concise, it helps align your team, align the needs of your users across multiple team members and stakeholders. So so your CEO gave you funds for some research. And after the whole research, you give them this statement, this clear problem statement in the research report, pointing to a clear need. So the third one, identify a benchmark and measurements for success. Sorry, hold on, please. All right, sorry. Okay, for the third one, for the third benefit, it identifies a benchmark and a measurement of success. Okay. So a problem statement or a user need statement, if properly crafted, have the added benefit of providing a metric for success prior to the onset of ideation, prototyping, or testing. So when we have our problem statement down, problem statement that is encompassing the user, the need, and the goal. So now when we focus on the need, so the first need here is to quickly and confidently compare options without leaving our comfort zone, to meet and socialize with others while maintaining family balance. So these are questions we can ask ourselves. By the time we have finally delved into design, we have created an application, we have prototyped it. Even before we get into testing, we can ask ourselves, does our application satisfy this need we have outlined in the problem statement? So that's the third one here. It becomes a measurement of success, basically. So use the insight or goal and ask yourself, how will we know if we have accomplished this? Now, how do we create a problem statement? We know it's the user plus the need plus the goal. Like, how do we filter the need and end up at one need? How do we filter the whys, the questions in our head to get to the insight or to the goal for answering that need? So the first step that I would recommend is to set the scope. So general or specific. Is it a general problem statement? Is it a secondary problem statement? So it's likely that you would have multiple problem statements within one project. An overarching umbrella statement and subordinate need statement articulate smaller goals for that user type. So the overarching problem statement is the general one or the primary problem statements, like I would say. And the subordinate need statement is the secondary. It's kind of feeding off of that very first overarching statement. So you should tailor your need statement based on your current project needs. So if you are starting a project from the start, a new project, a new idea, it's the best to start with a primary problem statement. That's the umbrella problem statement or the parent problem statement because broadly, and it doesn't limit us. So remember now that we found a problem, we research our target audience to get insights from them, to get research data. So now we have defined it. and are trying to get the problem statement. So in focusing on specific features, because we have gotten a lot of complaints, complaining about this, people are complaining about that, people are complaining about all all of that. So instead of narrowing it down to just one or two, three different problem statements, create an umbrella or a parent problem statement first before you can start creating subordinate problem statement. For example, in the case study we used in the empathy map and affinity map, I don't know if you remember, but it was about tracking your finances and the fact that possible current or available applications are too complicated and and they are not intuitive. Yeah. So a way to limit yourself now would be to say, let's say, praise praise as a person, as our persona. Praise needs a simple and intuitive application to track his money because available applications are too complex and unintuitive. So this is a problem statement that is already pointing to a need. It's already pointing to a solution rather. It's a You can say it's a subordinate problem statement because it's already pointing to a feature. But if you create an umbrella or parent problem statement, inspiration would say grades needs a way to stay above finances or to stay afloat financially because of inflation in the country, something like that. So now the need is he wants to stay afloat financially. We do not want to be in debt. We do not want to owe people. It is from it we can derive that he wants to track because for you to stay afloat, the reason why he wants to track his finances or his spending because he wants to stay afloat financially. He wants to make sure that debit is meeting credit. So by the time we're able to pinpoint the real need, we stop focusing on the problem of complex application or spreadsheets and all that, though they are important, yes. But if you want to head into ideation, you have to head into ideation with this problem, with this umbrella problem statement. It doesn't limit you. It's so we have to start by creating a broadly scoped problem statement at the onset of a product conception, at the beginning of your project or of your product. So that's the first step when you're setting the scope. So the second step is to conduct or gather qualitative research. So we have already done the research. So the qualitative inputs can be such as user interviews, field studies, diary studies, or qualitative surveys, which helps to drive deep insight about your user. So our focus here is qualitative. Like we understand the use of quantitative research, it helps. Yeah, but qualitative research is something we can't do without. So even when we are using surveys, which is primarily a quantitative research method, we have to add in ended questions, paragraphs for them to fill, focus on getting qualitative data from users. You can also look at the map that our team has made as affinity maps, the empathy map, or journey maps. So you have to now conduct and data your research, the research data that you have used. generate, mix and match them. So now we now start with generating problem statements. So sometimes you do not end up with the best problem statement the first time. Nobody's telling you to create a problem statement in one day or an hour. So something you keep creating and you keep refining till everybody in your team agrees that this presents the real user need, or this is what we are working with. So using your research, you can generate candidates for the three variables in your need statement: the user, the need, and the insight. So don't worry about creating the perfect statement from the onset. Instead, think about each variable in isolation and start to mix and match them. Combine different pairings until you have a statement that represents the user's real need. So generate, mix, and match. We have identified it might be as simple as the wordings, like the word we use to imply in the need. So just keep generating, keep ideating, mixing and matching different problem statements. So we get to the one that we feel represents the user's real need. Like I've said before, it is important to remember that our users will not always directly say or even know precisely what they specifically need or why. So as much as we are getting the says from the empathy map, like I've said before, you should think about what they are thinking, the real insight, their real need. Because it's easy to complain about something and not really think about the idea deeply. So now it's our job to do that deep thinking from the insights we have gotten, from the research data we have gotten. So you have to take responsibility to create something better than the customer could have imagined. They are the inspiration, but you are the creator. Yeah. So this is where a solution-oriented problem statement might not help you. I'm sorry. Hold on, please let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. So, so we have to take responsibility to create something better than the customer could have imagined. They are the inspiration, but you are the creator. So you have to practice this by continuing to ask yourself why. Why is this important to the user? What does the user care about? What emotion is driving the user's behavior? What does the user stand to gain? So, in your research, in the course of your research, you might have gotten complaints, you might have gotten insights on the user's needs. They might even say some statements that I wish this was like this. I wish this was this way. And you as a designer, you might pick it like that. Okay, they want this way. So let me create this way. But then you're focusing on just what they are saying. And they might not always say what they are thinking or what they are feeling. Yeah. So it's now your job to ask yourself, why? Why are they saying these things? Why is it important to the user? What emotion is driving this behavior or this complaint? What does the user stand to gain? So by the time you are done with generating the problem statement at stage three, remember now you are just generating a lot of problem statements, mixing and matching and merging a lot of insights, a lot of needs, a lot of users persona you have created. Now, once you have a working statement, begin critiquing and iterating on it. Challenge yourself with question. Are you thinking about your user needs as a verb rather than a noun? Does this statement launch you into ideation? Does this statement capture the nuances of what solving these needs would meet in your user's life? Now you were to critique your statement. Is your statement pointing at a specific solution? Does it launch you into ideation? You're thinking of different ways to solve this need. Does the statement capture the nuances of what solving this need could mean in your user's life? That's the insight. Does it point at the why? Like why is solving this important to your users? So the last one is to add methods of measurement. So upon landing on a final need statement, identify how you can measure its success. If you were to satisfy that need for your user, how would you know? Some common methods of measurement include customer satisfaction, which you can see via Play Store reviews or how well your application is being received, number of returns, renewed policies or continued use, recurring purchases or subscription, likelihood to recommend the product. So now that you have identified this, that this is a problem statement, this is your problem statement that you're going to work with. You have a need that you're going to work towards achieving or filling for the users, and you have the insight, the reason why you think that need is important. So you also have to add a method of measurement. So this is not, you're not adding this method of measurement to your problem statement, it's just to your desires generally. How do you know if that need has been successfully achieved or successfully satisfied? So how will you measure this users to know if your product is doing well or is not doing well? So these are common measurements that we can apply to our design process. Yeah. So some tips. We have talked about how to create the problem statement, and now some tips to craft an effective problem statement. So just are some things that we should just have in mind when crafting the problem statement. One, take a user-centric. Exactly. The users, like always, should be at the center, should be our focus. They are the reasons we are solving these problems. They are people that would give us money, even if they're solving a problem to get money, it's satisfying their needs that would give you that return. So always take a user-centric approach. Put them at the center of your design process. They are so important that we created a persona out of them. They are so important that it's their words, their complaints, and all that we have been trying to define. I've created an empathy map, I've created an affinity map, I've outlined their journey, I've created stories of them. So you have to take a user-centric approach, meaning that we do not just don't just jump into crafting a problem statement at the beginning of the design process. Craft it after you have understood your users to ensure that you're putting your users at the center of everything you're doing. Now, the second one is to define the scope clearly. So the scope, like I said, are you creating the umbrella problem statement, that's the general problem statement, or the specific problem statement, that's the subordinate one rather. So define your scope clearly, and your scope should also it also depends on what stage of your design process are you creating this problem statement. So now your problem statement can be specific because when you come to an application that's already been created, an application that, let's say, a fault has been found in it, and you head into research to find out what is wrong with that application. So at this point, your problem statement should point to some specific features or some specific pain point, because you're working on something that has already been marketed, that is already out there. So creating a general problem statement or an umbrella problem statement at this point might not help you. So it is necessary for us to define the scope clearly. At what stage of the design process are we creating this problem statement? If it's at the very beginning, when we have no idea on what solution we're offering or what problem we're trying to solve or the core need of our users, create an umbrella problem statement. Don't start limiting yourself by pointing to solutions and pointing to specific features. So three, highlight impact and consequences. That's the insight. What's the impact of solving this problem? What's the consequences of not solving this problem or solving the problem? What's the impact that this would create in my target audience or in my target users? Quantify and qualify the problem. So this is just basically the part of the research part where we have identified the problem and we're diving into it, conducting research to quantify and qualify the problem. How many people is this has this problem, and how deeply are they affected? How deeply is the pain and the frustration? Then five, align with business objectives. Like I said, the problem statement helps you to communicate with the stakeholders. So when you're done creating a statement and you give it to your stakeholders, the people in your team, they give you feedback that okay, this is it aligns with our business objective, it aligns with what we're also trying to solve or what we are paying you for. Let's go ahead with this. So we should always craft a problem statement that aligns with business objectives, or rather it helps us align our design process with business objectives because we are communicating. We're using it as a means of communication with our team and the stakeholders. So another tip is to use concise and clear language. So if I read your problem statement and I'm not really thinking about ideas or thinking or going headfirst into ideation, If it doesn't usher me into ideation, it's not clear and concise enough. So a problem statement that is fixated on the problem, where I'm reading a lot of complaints and it's it's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming. Like I've said before, I've seen a lot of complaints, it's a lot of frustrations and all. So the the first thing I would do is probably to just pick one of those complaints and think of a solution to them, just one of them at first, because that's how the brain works. When something is overwhelming, we try to make it as simple as possible. So you just pick one and focus on that one, leaving the others. So that's what happens when your problem statement is feature specific or solution specific or is focusing on the problem. Because like I said, if you're focusing on the word problem statement, you'll be creating statements about the problems. But if statement about the problem might not usher you into ideation, if you're not using the correct formula to create it. Yeah. So we are supposed to use concise and clear languages. It should just be one sentence for one problem statement. Then seven, focus on opportunities and not just issues. This is a summary of everything I've been saying. Focus on opportunities and not just issues. Yeah? Because now we have identified the problem. Yes, we have identified different problems, and we have identified by identifying the problem, we have seen a need for a solution to that problem. Now, having this mindset is us focusing on opportunities, not just the issues and not just the problem, but opportunities. By saying there's a need for this stuff. Need is basically demand. So what does demand want? Supply. Supply is an opportunity. We want to supply something. So we have found a need for it. That's why I say it's helped you to it's supposed to focus on opportunities and not just issues when crafting an effective problem statement. Yeah. So now that we are done, I've gone um full circle on crafting problem statement. So now we want to usher ourselves into ideation. So how do we go from problem statement to solution? So there is this method in UI exam, we call it the how might we statement. It's as simple as just phrasing your problem statement. Like you have the problem statement clear and concise and ready. So it involves you phrasing it as a question. So they are open-ended questions that reframe challenges as opportunities, encouraging ideation and innovation. The phrase how might we invites brainstorming without limiting ideas, fostering a positive solution-oriented mindset. It bridges the gap between understanding the problem and generating ideas. Remember, understanding the problem is the focus of the define stage. Understanding the problem. Generating ideas is the ideation stage. So how might we helps us bridge that gap? It just fosters us into ideation, into brainstorming. So now, for example, for a specific problem statement like user needs a smooth and more intuitive checkout process because the current experience is confusing and needs and causes them to abandon their cart. So this is a problem statement. You see the user, you see the need, and you see the insight or the reason why the need should be satisfied. Now, to usher this directly into ideation, we simply ask ourselves, how might how might we simplify the checkout process to reduce the cart abandonment? So now this is the question that we can ask ourselves. Let's say we have a whiteboard, you want to start ideas. Where the ideation process, you have the idea, you want to start ideas. Just take this statement and write it somewhere. So you have your research report, you have your research summary, you have the responses, you have the whole lot of information you have gathered, and now you want to start ideating. But we have simplified all that data, and we have gotten just a statement. How might we simplify the checkout process to reduce cart abandonment? Now it's a question. Now you start answering it. You start ideating. So now just think to yourself, how might I simplify this checkout process in a way that reduces cart abandonment? Then so you just start thinking of ideas. You have just clearly ushered yourself from that whole research phase of synthesizing research responses to ideating research solutions. Now, how to write effective how might we statements? Well, it's as simple as possible. One, start with insights gathered from the user research and problem statements. Keep them broad enough to allow multiple solutions, but narrow enough to provide direction. This also focuses on the problem statement. Make them broad enough to allow multiple solutions. So don't start pointing your problem statement at specific features or specific solutions because it limits your ideation. So keep them broad. Keep them broad to invite or to usher brainstorming because it's now a question. It's not this and need this specific thing. So just provide the specific thing. It's now this and need this. How might we give them this? Because there are different ways to give them this. So keep it broad enough to allow multiple solutions, but narrow enough to provide direction. So narrow means, first of all, we are narrowing ourselves with the user, either by using a persona representing a specific subset. Because for the solutions you'll be ideating for a specific persona would be different if you're just thinking about random users, everybody in Nigeria. Compare everybody in Nigeria to older adults above 40 years. There's already a specific difference. So they should be broad enough to allow multiple solutions, but still narrow enough to provide direction. So you're not lost. So things are still clear and precise. Use optimistic and inclusive language and focus on the user's perspective and need. Mm. Another example here is user needs a way to easily find relevant products because the current search functionality is ineffective and does not return accurate results. So the how might we statement would be, how might we improve product search to help users find what they need faster or more effectively? So now when you're ideating, just take this sentence, find type it out on your board, the only sentence on your board if possible, then start ideating. Start thinking of answers to this question, basically. Yeah, so now in summary of everything we've done, in summary of this is the last thing we'll be doing on the define stage. Next week we should head into the ideation stage. Now in summary, a problem statement defines the user, their need, and the insights or the why behind that need. It is concise, user-centered, and based on the real research data. The standard format is user need because of insight or goal. A strong problem statement guides the design process and focuses the team's efforts, while weak statements are vague or solution focused. and clear ones are clear and insight driven. Problem statements set the foundation for creating meaningful and effective design solutions, while how might we questions are derived from problem statements to spark design ideas. They frame problems into open-ended opportunities for ideation. So that's just the summary of everything. Problem statements, they set the foundation so that we can start creating effective design solutions. How might we questions help to reframe the problem statement to directly invite brainstorming and ideation. Basically. So this is the last methods we'll be discussing in the define stage. Do you have any questions? Do we have any questions? Raise up your hand if you have a question. Or you can ask in the chat box. Thank you, Faith. Oh yeah, it's true. Sense of any question. Do we have any questions? I would like to do something. We do not have any questions. I want to appoint a class representative just so that would alert me on any issues in the class. Like we have been having a lot of DMs and a lot of complaints. So is there anybody here that is active on the channel?